Hey everybody, it's Defense Mechanism. I wanted to make a new video about some of the features and changes for LSDj version 8.8.5. The last video I made was for an earlier version of version 8, which came out around April. And since then we have one stable version, which is 8.5.1. A couple of the things that are in here also apply to that version, which is a great version. I definitely recommend upgrading. There are some improvements and bug fixes since the previous one, which I don't know if I said in the video. It might have been 8.3 something, whatever version was out at the beginning of April. Sorry that I didn't clarify in that video, but this one is 8.8.5. There are a few very big changes. The most notable change is for the pulse and for the noise channels. This ADSR now goes all the way from 0 to F. And the reason that is because the volume is now being generated in software instead of hardware. So this allows for actually a much finer control of volume, and especially the duration. So if I set this to kind of the shortest duration, it's extremely short. Let me get rid of this R command. That's shorter than any instrument volume that you could get here. So as you lengthen it, let me just kind of set a few notes in here. And this F length is longer than even setting it in 7 in the previous versions. If you do upgrade your songs, there's a little bit of conversion math in here to get this to the closest value. And the E commands have not changed. So, well, they have changed in the sense that they are also done in software, but the idea is to keep them as close to the hardware envelopes as possible. So it should sound more or less the same. A couple of small changes. Sweep was changed to only go from 0, 0, 0 to 7F because the other values actually were just a duplicate version of these values. If you set it on FF, it's the same as 7F. So that was kind of simplified. Another small change is that tables are between tick and step now. So tick just means it runs every tick, which is the normal method, and step is like the old automate method. Everything else is pretty much the same. So one of the biggest changes here is in the noise channel. We've removed notes, and instead of notes now, you can actually program the noise shape. So there is no longer a shape parameter in the instrument because you can set it per note. If you do have something like a hi-hat or something, make this actually sound like a hi-hat, then you can anytime you repeat the instrument, let's make that a little longer, it will just and in fact it's the same if you change the instrument, it'll repeat the same shape that you had. So if I make a new instrument here and set this to AF, then anytime I switch to a new instrument, it'll revert it to the default shape, which is kind of helpful. So again, you'll actually notice a difference in the sound of the noise channel because when you make these notes, all of this is happening in software. The hardware envelopes used to restart the noise generator every time, and that caused a little bit of a blip. Anytime you place an envelope command, it caused like this kind of, a little sound at the beginning of the noise channel that kind of changed it. I don't know if it's just the way that I guess it's just the way that the Game Boy works when it generates the noise, and you kind of lose some of that quality. To me, it makes it sound a lot smoother. And in my songs, I've noticed that like when you combine like a noise channel snare with a wave snare, it sounds really nice and really smooth. One of the things I'll do here is kind of build a little bit of a noise snare. I've stopped using transients in tables because I found that using this really short attack on the ADSR means that I can really shape the sound a lot more effectively than I would in a table. So you can get these really cool like sounds where it starts off really loud and then it kind of gets softer. And that's more noticeable if I go in here. Let me just take this out, build a table for this, and sort of do this is kind of like my default snare, which I'm sure I've showed this off before, but it's also known as the def snare, or that's what I think about it as. And I've stopped like killing the notes because once the ADSR release is completed, I don't want to kill the note all the time. I mean, you can, but it kind of makes it less flexible. I don't even like putting E commands here anymore because that means I have more control in the phrase to put an E command or do anything else that I want to do, and the table doesn't interfere. So I use this A20 command to just kind of like run down all the way down. And you could put this up here, if you wanted to, but it might be the case that I want to put something else up here. So what I like to do is I'll kind of test this to see where I want the attack to stop. So that's kind of like too loud for me. So that maybe I'll have the attack be really loud there, and then I'll have like a longer decay, something like this. So that means I don't have to like set the starting value of this at 8 and then come over here and put E commands over here, which is what I had been doing previously. And I find that it sounds really good. And so then, of course, you've got all these different options because you can use the shape over here. And it doesn't require you to use two separate instruments. We still have the free and stable mode over here, though, which is, I think, just for S commands. But the S command isn't entirely necessary. But that being said, all the S commands still work like they did previously, so that they work with compatibility with older songs and stuff like that. So that's a big change. All of your songs will, of course, be upgraded to use the note shapes, most of which will be this kind of CF, AF, BF, and so on, because that's basically what the notes did. Another cool thing that I wanted to show off is a new wave instrument mode, which I did do a short video about this on Instagram and Twitter, but it's probably worth doing again. And that is a new mode called WF, I guess. So what this does is you can see that we have these different wave signals, the sawtooth, the square, and the sine or a triangle. What this allows you to do is for each synth, you can use a waveframe in the range of F0 to FF to be the custom input. I should also note at this point that the screen map has changed again from 2 rows to 3 rows. And to go back and forth between the synth and the wave frames, you hit select plus right, and it will rotate you between each. And then going to the left will take you all the way back to the project screen. which, by the way, is kind of a nice, if you're all the way on the table and you want to go back to the project screen, now that there's kind of a shortcut here because you can go up and left and back down. So I kind of like that. It doesn't work in reverse, but it is kind of nice. So at any rate, one of the cool things about this is, so like, let's say you set this to some kind of custom waveform with the synth, and you're really liking whatever the result of this is. You can copy this, set this to, well, let's copy it to wave F0. So for each synth, like synth 0 uses wave F0 as the input. Not to be confused with the game. Synth 1 uses wave F1, synth 2 uses wave F2, etc. So we'll put this in as our input. And then we'll go back to wave 0, and you'll notice nothing has happened. This is still the same thing that we had before. But as soon as you go back to change your synth parameters, now we can do things like, really increase the volume. Or, well, sorry, I have to change this to this. We don't get filtering because the filter is kind of an emulation anyway, so it's not really possible. But you can do things like change the phase, change the limit, change the V shift, etc. So that when we go back and check out our waves here, now we've got this kind of custom, just basically lets you kind of adjust the volume and the phase, the V shift, on a custom waveform, which I just think is really cool. So like if we wanted to hear how this sounds, we can kind of, let's ping pong it. Speed 3, length, we'll make it length C. Loop position, I don't remember, sorry, if any of this has changed, but the loop position means it's going to loop back to all the way to 0. And then, so there's that. There's another thing that I wanted to talk about, or two, related to the R command. So you saw that I had an R command over here. One of the cool things about this software volume ADSR is that it's very smooth, and it eliminates the clicking that we had in the previous ADSR because it was kind of like chaining those E hardware commands together. And so with this, you can kind of get a tremolo-like effect. I don't know if the value is right. You had to play with it a little bit, but yeah, that's a little too fast. So you can kind of hear it a little bit. It's not entirely perfect, but it is pretty cool. And to note that the R command actually it's changed in as far as that RF0 now means only re-trigger once, and then this actually means re-trig on every tick, on every 1 tick, re-trig every 2 ticks, re-trig every 3 ticks, etc. It was a little confusing to think that RF0 re-trigs every 1 tick and then RF1 trigs every 2 ticks. So now that just the numbers are start at 1, and 1 means 1. Also, all of your old songs get upgraded to this automatically, so you don't have to go in and change anything, which is really cool. So I'm excited because there are a lot of really cool possibilities with the R command and the new envelopes. I think the noise channel sounds really good. And none of these changes are actually, as far as the software envelope, were made in 8.5.1. So if you feel like you'd like the old sound of the hardware envelope, version 8.5.1 is now stable. And I would encourage anybody who's interested, especially if you're on like 6.8.2 or even like 7.02, all of your songs will be compatible with 8.5.1. There haven't really been any major bugs found with it, so I definitely encourage you to check that out. And if you're feeling a little more adventurous, go check out 8.8.5. And I think that you might be really surprised at how good it sounds and the level of control now that you have using ADSR with your instruments. So I hope you found that. I hope you found this video useful and helpful. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments. And I'll see you whenever we have a new version of LSDj with some more stuff that I want to talk about. All right, peace. Thanks. Thanks for watching.